for the first time in the 9-decade-old history of Kannada cinema, a section of the Kannada film industry finally, I think, finally woke up and submitted a memorandum or petition of the kind to the Chief Minister of Karnataka, asking him to constitute a committee on the lines of the Hema committee that has created ripples in the Malayalam film industry.
Yes.
And the Chief Minister has taken cognizance of the problem, I think, and he assured the delegation that met him to constitute a committee and look into the issues raised by the FIRE. I mean, Film Industry for Rights and Equality.
Right.
The acronym of this one is, we call it as FIRE. And since the day one of its coming into being, Chetan Kumar, actor Chetan Kumar, who is popularly known as Chetan Ahimsa, is leading it from the front, along with the support of the many personalities of the Kannada film industry.
Yes.
And Chetan is not only known for this kind of thing, he is into social, he can be considered as a social activist. His name crops up whenever there is something happens in the society. And today we are discussing on the demands of the FIRE before the Chief Minister of Karnataka and the happenings of these kind of unhealthy practices in the Kannada film industry.
Yes.
And we will discuss other things which is knowingly, unknowingly happening in the Kannada film industry, vis-a-vis with other film industries across the country.
Yeah.
So, welcome to you, Chetan. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and deciding to speak with us. The first question is...
Thank you for having me, Mr. Muralidhar. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak and giving such a in-depth, detailed, and conscientious introduction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The first question is, if my memory is right, FIRE started acting proactively, rather, when in 2017 and 18, when Me Too hit the total Indian film ecosystem together.
See,
One minute.
Okay.
And why it took so long? Why it took so long to ask for a state to create a mechanism like ICC or to constitute a committee to look into the allegations being made against vested interests? I can call it a vested interest in the film industry.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
far. Why it took so long? Can you please explain it threadbare to our viewers?
Thank you, Mr. Muralidhar. I came into the film industry in 2007. 2007 was my first film. It succeeded because of the way the film was made, the writers, the directors, the creators, the producers. I was just the beneficiary of that as an actor. But over the course of from 2007 to 2017, I understood the way the unregulated, patriarchal, cutthroat, hostile existence, that the unequal way that the film industry is structured, and how men and patriarchal minds in powerful positions continue to entrench interests that are in their self-interest at the expense of basic dignity, of course, equality, justice, human rights, and all these, what we say in the Constitution, are essentials of any society. And the film industry obviously doesn't have its own constitution. So these vested interests, powerful lobbies, patriarchal lobbies that benefit these men and are propped up by both men and women, these vested interests continue to dominate. And so what I used to watch was, from 2007 to 2017, I used to see individual women stand up in their own ways against a wrong, clear-cut systemic wrongs that they experienced. And even when they stood up in the media and expressed their trauma or their difficulty, these powerful vested interests, these patriarchal, ethically questionable, influential men would completely bring the kitchen sink down on this lone woman and character assassinate her, victim blame her, victim shame her, make it out to be like she is the problem instead of a very grossly patriarchal, hostile, unjust system. So I realized that if we want any kind of dignity and justice and human rights in the film industry, we cannot be one person standing against everybody. We must be united in an organization as a single voice for justice, equality, and rights. So in 2017, January, 10 years, nine and a half years after I joined the film industry, I decided to bring a lot of groups together who I felt were marginalized in the film industry, groups that did not have, who were denied rights, denied dignity, denied voices that they had, that they were being silenced and crushed. And we should all unite under a single banner. So in 2017, March, we officially registered the organization FIRE, Film Industry for Rights and Equality. The main agenda of FIRE from the get-go, which was based on legal precedent, which was based on discussions from various sources, the main intention of FIRE was to provide a justice platform for three main groups, three Ws: women, writers, and workers. I felt, to my understanding of the film industry, these three Ws did not have a strong enough platform to express the injustice they were facing and were basically crushed by the powerful lobbies and vested interests. So from 2017 March, we got together. For women, I felt we must start up on the basis of the 2013-14 POSH Act, which I had talked to lawyer Jaina Kotari, and the 2013-14 POSH Act, where it says for prevention of sexual harassment, there must be an ICC in various sectors, including the film industry. So our goal from March 2017 was to start up an internal complaints committee to not sensationalize sexual harassment, which was rampant, but to address the issue and sort it out in a justice-minded way within the industry. So an ICC. Of course, for writers, we wanted a writers' guild. There are many film industries in Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, and Hindi who are doing wonderful film work. A lot of it to do is to the writers and their creativity and their vision, and they're the building blocks of a good film industry. So Writers Guild, which we want, and also for workers, various programs from the government. Now, when I brought all these three groups together, women, writers, and workers, the funny thing is, while I felt all three were deserving of justice, each group felt they were deserving of justice and the other group didn't deserve it. So then I realized we cannot bring all these together. We must divide these into segments and fight for justice accordingly. So over the course of subsequently, in various other film industries, for example, in Malayalam, after we started FIRE and started the ICC in 2017, Malayalam, and because of an incident, a very glaring injustice that happened to a woman in Malayalam industry, very conscientious women in the Malayalam industry stood up and started the Women in Cinema Collective. And they were also doing work. We were working in tandem with them when Mohanlal put in their own, on his first time when he took over as Amma and reinstated Dilip. We in Fire stood up and we got 50 signatures from the Kannada film industry to oppose this decision. And we have actively, while we respect that women are standing up and fighting for justice and there are feminists, equalitarians, and justice-minded, we always believed in Kannada film industry and in Fire that this was an ideological struggle, not an identitarian struggle. While women are the victims of this, and this is a patriarchal system that benefits males much more, and women are clearly browbeaten on various levels, those who have to stand up are not women versus men. Those who have to stand up are justice-minded, conscientious, equalitarian human beings against a system that is unjust. So while you mentioned that you, Mr. Muralidhar, have been bringing out Fire's work from the first day, and we respect your consciousness as a man who fights for gender justice and for against all inequality in that consciousness, and you have been there, and many other medias have been there from the beginning. But when Me Too happened, and in 2018, which was about 1.5 years plus after we had already started the ICC and formed it, and we didn't join under any other film existing body. We created our own body because we didn't want to be under the kind of patriarchal, capitalist, or questionable ideas of powerful lobbies of those groups. We were independent. Then when Me Too happened, and women who had long-standing emotional, psychological, physical trauma from the systemic injustice that exists in film industry, and they spoke out because there was that acceptance by society, or there was a seeming acceptance by society that we could hear your voice after Hollywood in 2017 October, 2018 October in Kannada and the Indian film industry. Like I said, the whole machinery crashed down on these women and basically victim shamed, victim blamed, character assassinated. These are women who are extremely talented. These are women who gave successful film hits to the Kannada film industry. These are women who have done wonderful cinema and have a very strong attitude of good attitude in working with everybody. But when they came out and expressed their difficulty, suddenly in one night, the whole society at large started accusing them, blaming them, castigating them, calling them vulgar names. And we said this is unacceptable. As Fire, we will provide moral support. We will provide legal support. We will provide emotional support. And we are not saying that what they are saying is true or false. What we want is a transparent investigation and no victim blaming and victim shaming. So that was that point. And similarly, there was different struggles in various industries. Actually in 2018, 2019, all gender justice minded people from the South Indian industries, we got together in Chennai, and women from Chennai industry, women from Telugu industry, women from Malayalam and WCC, and equalitarians from Kannada industry. We all went there. We are feminists. We believe in gender justice. And we in Fire presented a PowerPoint presentation about what we have been doing in Fire. And while I was the only man there, I respect all the women there said, Chetan is also someone who believes in the same ideology, and he's also one of us. So I respect that, and they accepted us. And subsequently, as you know, Kerala film industry has always been quite ahead of its time in its quality script writing and its quality content and its quality success ratio, which is which we all respect and we are inspired by. But we also value the fact that Kerala administration, the government, listened to these voices of justice and pushed through and sanctioned a HEMA committee report, while delayed 5 years, but actually pushed it through officially to see what would investigate what is the truth behind this matter. So that being said, we have all got together in the Kannada film industry in one day, matter of fact, 153 people from inside the industry, outside the industry, people women, men, transgender, people who have consistently worked for gender rights and people who believe in gender justice have put their names and said, we want also for Karnataka and Kannada film industry, we also want a retired judge-led committee. This is a High Court or Supreme Court judge. This is a judge who has women, man, or transgender, but a judge who has committed to gender issues and gender rights and justice. And we want that committee, and we want that committee sanctioned. We want that reports publicized and brought out, and we want a cleansed film industry too. So that is the progress. And yesterday we went and met the chief minister. The chief minister said, number one, he said they have a complaint. That's why they did it. And we said we have so many complaints, and we would just definitely provide that to you. He said, I don't have time today. I will give you a lengthier time. So we're confident that he will give us a lengthier time. And before he left, he said, is there really sexual harassment in the film industry? He asked. Now, if he does not know, we are ready to bring in the evidence from FIRE and from various sources to say that this has existed for generations and is still existed. But if there's a certain kind of inability to accept the reality, because if you accept the reality, you have to fix it, then we will be disappointed. But right now, we have hope that the chief minister and the Karnataka government and the Karnataka administration will stand for this. We respect the fact from FIRE. We welcome that the Women and Child Welfare Minister, Lakshmi Hebbalkar, has said that casting couch perpetrators will have strict action taken against them. And we respect that. We welcome that. We also respect the fact that BJP's Manjula C and Soumya Reddy from the Congress have said that we support the demand for a committee in Karnataka, just like Hema committee in Kerala. And we intend, as FIRE, to work with the Lakshmi Hebbalkar, the Women and Child Welfare Minister, to provide democratic means and measures on how we can implement this in the film industry instead of just talk. We want to walk the walk. So we will continue this process, of course, and also writers and workers. We're also going to mobilize that. Today we have a death in the film industry of a light man, and we are putting out condolences from FIRE to the workers who have the workers' family and friends, and we intend to help the workers. We've already provided 146 homes to the government facilitated and various work during COVID for workers, and this is a ongoing process. So FIRE has been working all along, and FIRE will work more, and we will give back to our film industry and to our society that has given us so much.
Okay. The thing is, you are referring to the ICC.
Yes.
The fact is that you had an ICC.
Yes.
But you want that kind of ICC should have should have legal sanction, a kind of legal sanction. Where
Yes.
exactly this kind of legal sanction will come from the state.
Absolutely.
And either umbrella bodies of the film industry should have that kind of ICC.
Yes.
Or the government has to constitute one or set up one under the two departments, I think. One is labor department and there is the information department under which the film industry comes,
Okay, that's good. That's a very good suggestion.
So this committee for constitution of committee, and then it's submitting its report, and then implementing of these recommendations of the committee will take a long time.
It will take time.
In the meanwhile, why don't you stress upon the ICC with a legal sanctioned ICC, I mean, to look into the immediate problems that are being faced by the women in the Kannada film industry?
That is a wonderful suggestion, Mr. Muralidhar. FIRE in 2017, March, was the first film industry in India, and possibly anywhere in the world, I don't know, but in India, to start up our own film industry ICC. We took complaints. We tried our best to provide justice, and each complaint was different in its own way. But over time, we realized that no matter how noble our attempt and intentions were, we needed a larger strength to effectively implement the ICC and provide justice and make for a convincing deterrent to this systemic scourge that is sexual harassment and various other kinds of issues in film industry. So with my understanding of the film industry realities, I am not convinced that all the film industry bodies can come together and form an ICC. In actuality, in 2018, when we stood in moral support of the victim and the survivors of Me Too, film industry talked a very robust game in terms of film chamber and various other bodies that said, we will start the ICC. And we said, very good, you must, and we welcome that. We will do other work then. But film industry spoke that, film chamber, film bodies, and then never did anything. Now, if you look at the pattern, FIRE, even during 2017, when we were organizing our ICC, it had not made the kind of recognition all over the state or all over the film industry that it has today. But at that time, there were women who wanted justice for sexual harassment, who were going in front of the film chamber for justice. And we sent our legal teams to provide legal support to them at that time. And the kind of insensitivity, the kind of victim blaming, the kind of just hostile environment that those who are supposed to give justice kind of imposed on these women reminds me once again that it is not possible that I feel that the Tamil film industry and the Nadigar Sangam is trying to do its work, and I commend them in their attempt, but I'm not convinced that the film industry in and of itself can self-correct such a gross injustice that has been deeply entrenched, like sexual harassment and gender imbalance systemically through its own ways. So yes, we definitely value your feedback, that whether it be to the labor department, whether it be to the information department, whether it be to the women and child welfare department, whatever department, we could bring in some kind of a state-backed ICC. In fact, we have been talking about this. I've been discussing with lawyers who have spoken to me from FIRE from before. I've been discussing with many people in the government for over a year now, talking to them about why we should bring in this ICC to the government. But there was not that strong of a support for it. There was kind of a negligence, a carelessness. But today, after the HEMA committee report has come out, after there is a government-sanctioned kind of official investigation that has brought out the realities through 300 pages and 62 pages of sexual harassment, and there's been a strong outcry across many film industries, that now I feel the government will definitely pay attention, not only because the film industry is talking, not only because Kerala administration has brought this out and the committee report has accepted this reality and this truth, but also because Karnataka people at large are supporting this, believe this is a just demand, and they say, yes, this exists every place, every workplace. This kind of sexual harassment exists in different ways, and the most unregulated of which, in many ways, being the film industry. It is very much imperative that film industry women, film industry survivors, film industry conscientious equalitarians who have a platform to address this issue take this stand and make for a better society at large. So we are very thankful that this is happening now. This HEMA committee report has given us what we call very strong support and strength.
You are explaining the nitty-gritties of the ICC and the memorandum you have submitted and what the government will do about it. Okay, fine. But my question is absolutely about the what happened to the HEMA committee report. It was stranded for nearly 4 years. Then even if when it submitted to the government with the pressure from various quarters, what exactly happened is it was a deducted report, rather abridged report. It is not in full. When the court intervened, and then court asked you to give it, they gave everything in a sealed cover. Okay, this should not happen in the days to come. when the government forms the committee. That's why I wanted to know from you, what is the brief that you are going to set for the government while making this, constituting the committee? And secondly, you have already given the 3 months time for the committee to submit its report. And what will be its course of action? Simply formation of a committee, we have seen several judicial commissions so far in the history of Karnataka politics. Nothing has happened and nothing has been implemented what has recommended by the committees. That's why my specific question is, have you prepared a brief? What should be the course of action and everything? Please explain to me.
Yes, we are in the process of discussing how best to reach the government, whether it be the CM or the Women and Child Welfare Minister, how best for us to be a source, a point of contact, a point of reference as FIRE, a point of where if they need complaints and they need evidence to say that this is a gross reality, this gender inequal kind of system, and also sexual harassment is actually existent. Because I mentioned the CM before he left asked whether sexual harassment really exists in the film industry. And so if they need materials, we will definitely provide that with all the necessary evidence. Of course, we will never force anybody to speak if they don't feel like comfortable speaking on their own. This is not a question of saying you speak or women have already faced this emotional, psychological, and oftentimes physical types of harassment and trauma. We don't want them to force them in any way, compel them to go through that kind of anguish. But if there are women who are willing to speak up, and we have had a lot of nonviolent justice warriors in the film industry from during Me Too, and these are role model women, or not just talented actors, but role model women. So if they need any kind of evidence for that, we would definitely provide it. In our demand letter, we brought up two main things. I mean, I'm reiterating that we want a High Court or Supreme Court judge who is a retired judge, woman, man, or transgender, who has committed for gender justice issues and has a consistent track record of gender rights. That is our main demand in that way. And the two things that we want is, number one, we want a thorough investigation. We want a thorough investigation, a study. We're not looking for name, game, blame, shame kind of activities, because what happens is this is a systemic issue. This is a kind of a deeply entrenched issue. You bring out one person's name, it won't solve anything. It'll just be a frenzy for the media. What we want is to say evidence that this exists, and we want it to be brought out in a timely fashion. We are asking for 3 months. We want this to be done. We cannot wait for 5 years. If Kerala government has already got it out, there's no reason why we have to be so delayed in everything. We are also conscientious people in Karnataka, and we also want a very good cinema industry in society. And number two, after this investigation comes out, we don't want just this kind of matter to kind of be pushed to the side. We want policies, we want laws, and we want various kind of correction mechanisms, justice-based mechanisms that will ensure that this system is cleansed and an equitable, healthy film industry is created. So we want the investigation, the report publicized, then we want the policies. Now, if after this comes out, where there's a whole consciousness that this is a reality in the film industry and women feel somehow empowered to speak about their own struggles, that is left to them, and that is left to their kind of discerning ideas. That is not something that we want or don't want. That is something that might be a consequence of generations of trauma and difficulty that have been faced, and that is something that we must accept. But that is not, we are not looking for individuals to be named and shamed. We are looking for cleansing of the entire system that is very deep rooted.
Actually, when I was speaking to Shruti Hariharan, she made two important points. One is the period for the complaint. It is something like 45 days or something like is there.
Yes,
But
yes,
you
yes.
cannot do it immediately. Don't you think those kind of guidelines or the rules should be amended so that they can, even after a year, even after 2 years, even after 3 years, they can come to the ICC and complain to that. That's number one question.
Yes.
Secondly, she has raised a very pertinent question about the treatment being meted out to the artists, not the heroines or something, higher echelons of the film industry, but the lower strata of the film industry, where exactly uh, they don't have
Platform. Platform.
place for
Yeah.
place for change their clothes, go to the
Yeah. Yes, yes,
loose and other
absolutely.
things. Yeah, and then very importantly, I'm very sorry to say the problem they are faced by during the period time. These are the things. Don't you think these should be addressed immediately, forthwith, without any delay, so that they should live in harmony, they should live in peace, they should work with freedom in
And
the
dignity. And
shooting
dignity.
place, the dignity.
Yes.
Can you do
Absolutely.
something about it through the five?
Yes, Mr. Muralidhar, you bring up very many good points, and Shruti Hariharan has also articulated very conscientious, very strong, sensible points, and she is a trailblazer with us in this initiative. So, number one, in terms of the timeline, I definitely agree. See, one of the reasons why, even in Shruti's situation, fire could not take up an internal complaints committee action for Shruti was that Shruti's case was maybe a year and a half or two, and fire had maybe a 1 year time limit guideline for that to address complaints. So, yes, the timeline must be corrected, rectified, expanded, and it must be, and there must be some kind of a reform in that without a doubt. And number two, we I this kind of sexual harassment, while we talk about, even Lakshmi Hebbarkar has mentioned the word casting couch. Casting couch specifically is what female artists have been experiencing, and there is some platform for outcry which has gone on in many film industries, and we support that outcry and resistance. But also the film industry for any woman. In fact, if we see our complaints, film industry for any woman working in, whether it be technical fields, whether it be cinematographers, sound engineers, assistant directors, whether we have had complaints from workers, hairdressers, from anything. There it is inbuilt kind of gender injustice, inequality, sexual harassment, and various kinds of forms of difficulties. And like you said, the film industry, being an unregulated industry, where a lot of powerful old male influential, politically connected, vested interests are in dominant positions. What happens is, it is more, if you look at a kind of a office setup, while sexual harassment happens everywhere, in an office setup, you have a regulated environment. You have almost maybe 30, 40%, maybe 50% women. You have possibility of CCTV cameras. You have an ICC in the office. You have a 9 to 5 work week. You have various kinds of regulatory steps that you can ensure, which is a good thing. But the film industry, if you look at its structure, if you look at its way it exists, it is very difficult to regulate and provide actual benefits for gender equitable environment, which is all the more reason the government must get involved. See, number one, you're talking about every 1 or 2 or 3 months, you're talking about a different team, different film team. You're talking about going out to different locations where there's maybe 1 or 2 women, 50 or 100 men. You're talking about no places to dress, no places to use the washroom. You're talking about overall kind of night travel by a woman alone, and various difficult situations that exist that have to be addressed. And this is something that we have to take into consideration overall. And that's why when we put up our demand, like the HEMA committee report, ours was issues of women, including and not limited to sexual harassment. So the 300 pages that came in from the HEMA committee report was I think 62 pages or so were sexual harassment, but the other 240 pages were just built-in structural inequality, gender inequality in the workplace that must be consistently addressed and rectified and reformed for a just film industry.
Actually, the question is, don't you think Kannada film industry is 90-year-old? And it has transformed a lot from the days of the silent era, from this digital era. Don't you think every production house should have the kind of an ICC or something like that to give protection? Or the umbrella bodies of the film industry should instruct them, like Karnataka Film Chamber of Commerce, Karnataka Artists Associations, Karnataka Directors Associations, Karnataka Producers Association, Karnataka, etc., etc., etc. They could have done something all these days, but they haven't done that. Don't you think this is the time for them to introspect and do something?
Without a doubt, this is a time for overarching introspection for all the people in the film industry, as well as people in society at large, and the power structure and the governments in general, women, men, transgender, everybody. Now, in Kerala, there was a high court decision. I made statements about this maybe a couple of years ago that said every film team should have an ICC. I also articulated at that time that while that is well-intentioned, I am not convinced that is a feasible mechanism for justice and reform, because those who are themselves the perpetrators or oftentimes in positions of power to perpetrate cannot be expected, or we cannot hold them in some way to correct these measures in a sensitive, dignified way when they themselves are oftentimes oblivious to these, denied these things, or even the perpetrators to different levels. So I don't see one ICC per team as a possibility. I am not convinced that the film industry and all the bodies themselves can unite individually on their own level to bring about this and actually institute a very sensitive, conscientious justice measure. I believe there must be, for an actually effective ICC, there must be state-sponsored sanction and state-sponsored involvement. The National Commission for Women, I think Nagalakshmi, I was on a channel with her. I think I respect her for doing good touch, bad touch, and spreading the word on these issues. We ask her to get involved. We ask every women's cell to kind of express the support that this is necessary, because we need, I would say, from my understanding, it could be wrong, it could be right, because a lot of things are experimental at this stage. I believe we need one overarching kind of constitutionally mandated, legally mandated, with empowered kind of people with just gender rights consciousness kind of ICC members to handle this issue overall. And I don't think the film industry itself can self-critique, and I definitely don't believe every film team will have that kind of gender justice mindset. Maybe in a half century, when we bring in a lot of gender equality policies and we bring in a whole bunch of gender equality notions in society, by that point, there will be the awareness in men and women and everybody alike to bring in their own ICCs. But as of now, I would say we need one overarching ICC that is state-sanctioned, state-sponsored.
Okay. Actually, I wanted to know, you have submitted a petition to the government, and you know how the government works in this country.
Yes.
You know? And it will take its own sweet time to do all these things. What are the steps you are taking, or how are you trying to follow up your action rather in the future? At least, I think, I don't say victims, but the women in the film industry should form their own organization and start stressing on their demands on their own. Then don't you think it will have its own emphasis on the government or pressure on the government? It will work as a pressure group on the government, so that they will forget the issue Public memory is very short. Once Hema Commission, fine, okay, you have made an appeal, okay, everything will be okay style. It will end as it is. They will forget it. I don't want a kind of inertia. I want a perfect inertia from the file, which has to take it forward in a systematic manner. There should be a mechanism to look into what exactly is happening. Next stage, what is the next stage? What will be its impact? How the government will act? All these things you should take into consideration. How will you take it forward, Mr. Chetan?
Yes. Number one, I respect your passion and your well-intentioned guidance. Thank you. We definitely need to work as a pressure group to pressure the government. I have been working in activism for over 12, 13 years now. In all issues of injustice and a fight for right, they are all our issues. The system in India is such that if you have a justified demand, you push for it strongly, the media supports, the people at large support, and you hold your ground in a conscientious, strong, unified way, oftentimes the demand, more likely than not, will be met at some point. Now, this might take some time. This might happen tomorrow. This might happen after a long time. But a justified demand will be met at some point. And that is the way our government functions, because there is a kind of willingness to submit to a justice-based demand. And I respect that about our society. It's not very deeply entrenched interests the way other societies like America especially is. But India is open to a truly conscious demand and will be willing to change no matter what government that is, no matter what demand that is. Number two, while anybody in the film industry and anybody in any industry has the right to take up and form any kind of body they wish to do for the betterment of their organization or their society or their industry or their group of people in whatever way, I believe we don't need to address this issue with a women's group like other states have done, like Kerala Women in Cinema Collective, maybe Malayalam and Telugu, and Tamil. We need to fight this on an ideological level of gender equalitarians, gender justice-minded human beings, fighting a system that benefits powerful men and men at large and is upheld by both men and women alike. Now, why I say that is because FIRE, from its get-go, has had a large section of women and some men, and we have been pushing for this ideology of an equalitarian workplace and a healthy workplace from 2017. But once we got into providing moral support for Me Too victims, and we were at the kind of a lot of finger pointing and accusations by various vested interests, media sources, powerful lobbies. There were a lot of women also who were in FIRE who have actively expressed desire for gender equality and justice, and probably they themselves have experienced this kind of sexual harassment on many levels. They themselves came out and actively opposed publicly FIRE in their own ways. Now, everybody has a right to speak. Everybody has a right in a democratic process to put their ideas forward. And there's no finding fault with any individuals for doing that. But what we must understand is that while there are women and men who believe in a justice society, there are also women, like most, if not all men, who uphold and even tolerate and sometimes even pour oil to fan the flames of a patriarchal, unjust system that goes against their own existential interests. So this, Mr. Mulidhar, is an ideological battle. This is not an identitarian battle. And any issue in Karnataka must be seen through a resistance method of ideology, not through an identitarianism, because that is the way that our icons, such as Baba Sahib Ambedkar, Tande Periyar, and many people who were like 20th century men born, but were very strong intersectional feminists as an ideology. And that is what we need for Karnataka.
Actually, the last question, Chetan, you portrayed you as an activist. Being society is portraying you as an activist. You have faced threats and other things so far. So, can you briefly tell us social activism part of your life besides being an actor in Kannada film industry? You saw that you work with the H.S. Doreswamy and others. I know about that.
Yes,
I just
yes,
wanted
yes.
to know, just briefly, can you tell our readers your commitment with the society?
Yeah, we very much respect Mr. H.S. Doreswamy. Mr. H.S. Doreswamy, we worked together in our Digdali activism to provide Adivasi rights in 2016 and 17. He has, even at 100 years old as a freedom fighter, 100 plus years old, he was open to listen to ideas from 15, 16, 18, 20-year-old youth. There was an extraordinarily humanistic, transformative vision in Mr. H.S. Doreswamy, and we are all inspired by him. Yesterday, Gauri Lankesh, it was her day, that assassination of Gauri Lankesh, and we all fought alongside Gauri Lankesh. We respect Gauri Lankesh's vision and her courage, and she gave her life as a martyr to a better society. And her sister, Kavita Lankesh, is the president of FIRE and has actively championed gender rights and stood strongly when Me Too victims and survivors were speaking out and the whole system was attacking. So we respect that she is also our president even now, and we are all fighting for that, fighting for justice continued. I came to India in 2005 after being born and raised in the US and studying at Yale. And at 23 years old, I came on a Fulbright scholarship to serve in Karnataka, to serve my society that I might not be born in, but I have been the beneficiaries of, in terms of caste, in terms of gender, in terms of educational benefits, in terms of economic benefits, in terms of all types of benefits that I've gained from Karnataka society and that from my parents. And I wanted to give back. And that was my goal through theater and activism. I, by chance, got into films in 2007. And I was fortunate that the film ran not because of me, in spite of me, and it was because of many other very creative, talented people, and also Maina, Aa Dinagalu for that, and many other films. And today I'm fortunate that the people of Karnataka at least value the work that we are doing for equality and justice, and have seen that this is something that we must all do, not for against injustice that only affects us, but an entire system that is built on injustice and inequality. And that is something that our icons, Buddha, Basava Ambedkar, Periyar, Phule, Kuvempu, have always, through non-violence, advocated transformative equality, justice, and rationality.
Yes.
And our fight will definitely continue. And we respect Mr. Muralidhar, you, sir, for even from the beginning, when FIRE was started in 2017, when there was obviously no media attention and there was no credibility that we had. And I had just finished my activism with Digdali activism in Adivasis in Coorg, where we gave 528 homes. And we said we wanted to build this in film industry. And you, Mr. Muralidhar Khajane, said you were saying this is what film industry needs. And you have supported us back then through media, through moral support. And we very much value your vision. And we hope that you will continue to provide us insights and guidance into how we could make this, actualize this into a reality.
One last question, Chetan. I said that was the last question, but it's a generic one. Rather, I wanted to know how busy you are in the film industry now. That's for our viewers, because
Yes,
film
yes.
goers. Yeah.
Yes, I have 2 films in Telugu and Kannada from the same banner that are ready to release. One will be releasing soon, I think, in Telugu, and another one which I'm very confident about. I'm somewhat confident. I don't know how confident you could be about any film, but I think it is a good film. It's a commercial entertainer film. I am the lead protagonist in that film. It's a Telugu director and a Telugu banner and a Telugu Kannada film, and we're going to release that after maybe possibly shooting abroad. So that should be coming out in about 4 to 5 months, and I am hopeful that that will at least be liked by the audiences, and at least I hope we'll see how that goes. And the film producer will recover the funds that have been invested. And I'm right now shooting in Karnataka for another film called Marga, which Mr. Puneet Rajkumar launched, and that we just finished up a fight. And actually, that has been going well. And I have another film in pre-production. So my films, I know that there are a lot of thousands of very talented actors who have worked in the film and who have worked in theater, who are very talented, who are very passionate, who can very much do service to the film industry as actors. And we need more writers and directors and technicians and producers, obviously, who make their money back. But I feel as though my services to society in terms of building a society of equality and justice and rationality that is enshrined in our Constitution, I feel as though that is something that I might have more requirement or purpose to do than necessarily do acting. But of course, if there's a good film and somebody wants me to do, I will try. I will give a sincere effort, and I will be a part of that film, definitely.